in the chaos of a school shooting. Teachers are frightened, students running for cover, law enforcement sees panicked crowds and locked doors. Even the shooter blends into the confusion. For teacher Molly Darnell, her instincts told her to protect and guide. She saw a student walking calmly through this turmoil and thought he needed help. She called out, offering assistance. But the calmness of 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley wasn't reassuring, it was chilling, and then she saw the gun. Molly understood long before her mind allowed her body to move. Ethan raised his semi-automatic 9mm handgun, the one his father let him pick out just days before, and fired. The bullet struck her in the arm. She stumbled, screamed, and ran for her life. This tragedy is one of many, a horrifying reminder of how unprepared we are for these moments. Teachers aren't trained to identify threats like this. Even law enforcement struggle in this type of chaos. Schools are meant to be safe, but time and time again, they become the stage for preventable horrors like this. Welcome to Timeless Mysteries. Please like and subscribe as we uncover how these tragedies happen and why the cycle continues. Ethan Crumbley stood in the hallway, took stance, aimed, and fired again and again. 30 rounds were fired within 5 minutes. He wasn't rushed. He moved methodically, choosing his targets and pulling the trigger with deliberate precision. The echo of bullets ricocheted through the school as the chaos continued. By the end of the rampage, 4 students were dead and 7 others, including Molly, were severely injured. So how did this happen? What went wrong? The answer lies in a cascade of failures, not just in the hours before the shooting, but in the weeks leading up to it. Let's start at the beginning.
Ethan here.
Ethan Crumbley didn't wake up one day and decide to commit mass murder. There were warning signs. He wrote in his journal about violent fantasies. He searched for ammunition online while sitting in class. When a teacher caught him looking up bullets, the school contacted his parents, but there was no follow-up. His mother even texted him, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You just have to learn not to get caught." Days before the shooting, Ethan's behavior escalated further. He began drawing disturbing images, including a gun, bullets, and a bleeding figure. Next to the drawings, he wrote phrases like, "blood everywhere," and "the thoughts won't stop, help me." These weren't subtle hints. They were a desperate cry for intervention. On the morning of November 30th, 2021, a teacher found one of these drawings and immediately reported it. The school did the right thing by alerting counselors and calling Ethan's parents in for a meeting. But this is where everything fell apart. During the meeting, Ethan's parents were shown the drawing and told he needed mental health support within 48 hours, or Child Protective Service would be contacted. However, no one searched his backpack or locker. No one removed him from the school that day. His parents refused to take him home, claiming that they needed to get back to work. And the school, they allowed Ethan to return to class, despite the fact that he had written "help me" next to a drawing of bullets and blood. Think about that for a moment. A child explicitly expressed violent thoughts and distress. His parents dismissed it, the school dismissed it, and he was allowed to walk back into his classroom where the gun that he would soon kill 4 people was waiting for him inside of his backpack. What was the right thing to do in this situation? Shrug and look the other way with a casual "he needs counseling" recommendation? In this case, that was a deadly mistake. This wasn't just an oversight, this was negligence on a catastrophic scale. After Columbine in 1999, the Federal Safe Schools Act and the Gun-Free Schools Act mandated zero-tolerance policies for weapons in schools. These laws gave administrators sweeping authority to act decisively in the presence of a threat. But authority means nothing without accountability. Oxford High School's failure to search Ethan's bag directly violate these federal safety mandates. No exceptions should have been made. In the years since Columbine, programs like these have funded school security measures, including metal detectors, anonymous threat reporting systems, and crisis intervention training for staff. School districts in wealthier areas have embraced these reforms, equipping their campuses with on-site resource officers, security cameras, and mental health counselors. But these resources are unevenly distributed. Schools in low-income areas struggle to meet basic safety standards. Oxford High School is not a low-income school. Yet, there were no metal detectors, there was minimal security presence, and there was no clear threat assessment policy. We cannot ignore the fact that wealth disparities create a two-tiered education system in the United States. Well-funded schools invest in this layer of protection, while underfunded schools are left vulnerable. Are we truly okay with only the smart or the rich schools being equipped to protect their students? If a school cannot ensure safety, it shouldn't be open. Closing schools with inadequate resources may sound extreme, but how can we justify keeping them open when our students' lives are at stake? What about legal accountability? Michigan law grants public schools and their employees legal immunity from lawsuits, shielding them from liability for their actions or lack thereof. This immunity leaves families without recourse, even when negligence is as glaring as it was at Oxford High. In contrast, some states like California hold schools accountable for failing to act on credible threats under their mandatory reporter laws. Michigan's lack of similar protections for students highlights a gaping hole in our education system. Even with stricter protocols, the risks still remain. Some schools have adopted cutting-edge safety measures such as requiring students to wear panic alert badges, conducting mandatory bag searches, and employing AI surveillance systems that flag suspicious behavior. These measures save lives, but they're rarely implemented on a national scale. Virtual learning offers another alternative, eliminating the physical risks of a classroom setting. While not perfect, a hybrid model combining in-person and virtual education could reduce exposure to potential violence. Ultimately, we need to ask ourselves, how many more times must this happen? How many more students have to run for their lives? How many more families have to bury their children? Until we address systematic inequalities, enforce federal mandates, and end the culture of negligence, tragedies like Oxford High will continue. America doesn't lack the resources to fix this. It lacks the will to do what must be done. Ethan Crumbley, the perpetrator of the Oxford High School shooting, pleaded guilty to multiple charges including terrorism causing death and first-degree murder. On December 8, 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jennifer and James Crumbley, Ethan's parents, were charged with involuntary manslaughter for their roles in this tragedy. They were convicted on all counts, and on April 9, 2024, each received a sentence of 10 to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. So I'll leave you with this. When are we going to start holding the state, city, and the federal government accountable for these tragedies? How much longer are we willing to send our children into these schools that aren't safe? How many more lives need to be lost before school safety becomes non-negotiable? Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep questioning the truth. Do you believe in aliens? Each year, hundreds of people report being abducted by extraterrestrials. But what if these stories were actually the work of killers like David Parker Ray, the toy box killer, who drugged, tortured, and released his victims with no memory of the ordeal? Find out more about the toy box killer in my next video.